The Council's fatal underestimation, the arrogant decision, the crystal spire of Nexus Prime stretched impossibly high into the void, its translucent walls pulsing with the heartbeats of 847 different alien civilizations. This monument to galactic unity orbited a neutron star whose gravitational field had been tamed and weaponized centuries ago, serving as both the seat of power and the ultimate deterrent for the Galactic Sovereignty Council. Inside its highest chamber, where reality itself bent to accommodate the diverse needs of hundreds of species, the most powerful beings in known space, gathered to decide the fate of yet another primitive world, Supreme Arbiter Zeth-Kar floated. At the center of the vast amphitheater, his crystalline body refracting the neutron star's deadly radiation into beautiful prismatic displays. His species, the Vorthkai, had evolved from living minerals on a world where silicon and carbon had learned to cooperate rather than compete. For 3,000 years, they had served as neutral mediators in galactic affairs, their emotionless logic making them ideal judges of which species deserved to join the galactic community and which needed to be reformed around him. The assembled delegates represented the full spectrum of galactic evolution. The Zephyrian Empire occupied the northern section, their metallic bodies gleaming with the technological augmentations that had allowed them to conquer 47 star systems through pure military efficiency. Across from them, the Hive collectives. Organic masses pulsed and writhed in their biopods, their shared consciousness allowing them to speak with one voice that represented the will of trillions. In the energy containment fields along the eastern wall, the plasma lords flickered and danced, their forms shifting between states of matter as they communicated through controlled electromagnetic bursts. Today's agenda was simple. Another primitive species had been discovered in a backwater system, and the Council needed to vote on their standard response: conquest, absorption, and elevation to galactic civilization. It was a process they had perfected over millennia, bringing the benefits of advanced technology and unified government to species too primitive to achieve it themselves. Some called it imperialism. The Council preferred to call it compassion. Zeth-Kar's voice resonated through the chamber, automatically translated into the 847 different languages and communication methods used by the assembled species. The crystalline being's tone carried the weight of absolute authority, backed by the combined military might of civilizations that had long ago learned to fear the consequences of defying the Council's will. Honored representatives, he began, his words causing harmonic resonances in the crystal walls. Today, we gather to discuss the integration of System 2847 Delta, locally known as Sol. Our long-range survey teams have completed their analysis of the third planet, designated Earth by its inhabitants. The species that calls itself humanity has reached the preliminary stages of space exploration and appears ready for uplift into our galactic community. The holographic display that materialized above the assembly showed a blue and green world, spinning slowly in the void. To most of the assembled delegates, it looked exactly like hundreds of other primitive planets they had conquered over the centuries. Water, oxygen, abundant resources, and a species just advanced enough to be useful as workers, but too primitive to offer meaningful resistance. Admiral Corv Tech of the Zephyrian Empire raised one of his 4 arms, the gesture causing his metallic exoskeleton to catch and reflect the chamber's ambient lighting. His species had built their reputation on military precision and overwhelming technological superiority. Standing 12 feet tall with a body that looked like living armor, he commanded respect simply through his presence. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone who had personally overseen the conquest of entire civilizations. Supreme Arbiter, what makes this particular species noteworthy? Our preliminary scans suggest they are still using chemical propulsion for space travel. Their fastest vessels require months to travel between their homeworld and their single natural satellite. Surely such primitives pose no challenge to our established integration protocols. Zethkar's crystalline form pulsed with what his species considered amusement, though most other races found the display somewhat unsettling. Indeed, Admiral, the humans represent perhaps the most primitive spacefaring species we have encountered in recent memory. Their technology is laughably outdated by our standards. They still burn fossil fuels for energy, use crude metals for construction, and their most advanced weapons are fusion devices so inefficient they require rare isotopes to function properly. A chamber filled with various alien expressions of disbelief and mockery. The Hive Collective's organic mass rippled with patterns that indicated shared amusement among their trillions of constituent organisms. The Plasma Lords flickered in rapid sequences that served as laughter among their energy-based civilization. Even the normally stoic Silicon Confederacy made grinding sounds that resembled chuckling. Dr. Zithara of the scientific communion materialized. At her designated speaking position, her gaseous form contained within a specialized atmospheric suit that allowed her species to exist in the chamber's mixed environment. As the galaxy's foremost experts on evolutionary biology, her people were responsible for analyzing newly discovered species and determining their potential value to the galactic community. Supreme Arbiter, if I may present our detailed analysis, she said, her voice carrying the clinical detachment that marked her species' approach to scientific inquiry. Humanity displays all the typical characteristics of a failed evolutionary experiment. High intelligence combined with destructive tendencies and an inability to achieve planetary unity. In the past century alone, they have fought 2 global wars that eliminated hundreds of millions of their own kind. The holographic display shifted to show real-time surveillance footage from Earth's surface. The assembled delegates observed sprawling cities shrouded in industrial pollution, vast areas of deforested landscape, and oceans filled with floating debris. To beings who had long ago learned to live in harmony with their environments, the images looked like the aftermath of a civilizational collapse rather than an active society. Furthermore, Dr. Zithara continued, humanity remains divided into nearly 200 separate political entities, many of which maintain active hostilities against their neighbors. Their economic systems are based on resource exploitation and unsustainable consumption patterns. They have driven thousands of other species on their planet to extinction through habitat destruction and climate manipulation. Supreme Arbiter. Zethkar nodded approvingly, his crystalline body refracting the chamber's light into complex patterns that indicated satisfaction. Precisely the kind of species that will benefit most from our guidance. They possess sufficient intelligence to be useful, but lack the wisdom to govern themselves responsibly. Integration into our community will save them from their own destructive tendencies while providing us with another productive world and workforce. The vote was called immediately, following the Council's standard procedure for such straightforward decisions. Each species indicated their choice through their preferred method of communication. Light patterns, sound frequencies, chemical releases, and quantum entanglement signatures all conveyed the same unanimous decision. Earth would be conquered within 1 standard galactic year. Asterisk. Fleet Commander Velthok of the Metallic Hegemony stood to acknowledge his assignment as invasion leader. His species had evolved on a world of liquid metal seas and crystalline mountains, developing bodies that resembled living spacecraft more than traditional biological forms. Standing 15 feet tall with a hull-like torso and appendages that could reshape themselves into any tool or weapon, he was the embodiment of military efficiency. Supreme Arbiter, I accept command of the integration fleet, he announced, his voice carrying the harmonics that indicated complete confidence in success. Standard doctrine suggests a force of 50 vessels should be more than sufficient for a species at this technological level. However, given their apparent tendency toward violent resistance. I recommend deploying 200 ships to ensure rapid capitulation and minimal casualties among our forces. Zethkar's approval resonated through the crystal structure of the chamber itself. Granted, Fleet Commander. You are authorized to deploy whatever force you deem necessary. The humans will receive the standard offer of peaceful integration. If they refuse, as primitives often do, you have permission to use whatever methods are required to bring them into compliance. As the delegates began filing out of the chamber, already moving on to other matters of galactic importance, none of them noticed the small inconsistencies in their intelligence reports. Hidden among the surveillance data were structures that seemed unusually advanced for a species supposedly limited to chemical propulsion. Facilities that looked suspiciously like weapons research installations, disguised as simple manufacturing. Plants, energy signatures that didn't quite match the primitive technology they expected to find. But such details were beneath the notice of conquerors who had never encountered serious resistance in over 8 centuries of expansion. The Galactic Sovereignty Council had grown comfortable with easy victories over primitive species who were grateful to be absorbed into galactic civilization. They had forgotten what it felt like to face an enemy that could fight back. 6 months after the vote, Fleet Commander Velthak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Reality's Edge, watching the blue world of Earth growing larger on his tactical displays. Behind him stretched the largest fleet in recent galactic history. 500 warships equipped with weapons that could crack continents and shields that could deflect stellar radiation. Each vessel represented technological advancement beyond anything the primitive humans could imagine. The fleet's composition reflected the Council's commitment to overwhelming force. Dreadnoughts the size of small cities, their hulls bristling with plasma cannons and reality distortion generators. Cruisers equipped with dimensional anchors that could prevent enemy ships from escaping into hyperspace. Fighters that moved faster than light and could phase through solid matter at will. It was, by any reasonable measure, unstoppable. Velthak's species had evolved specifically for warfare, their metallic bodies serving as living weapons platforms that could interface directly with their ship systems. His consciousness was spread throughout the Reality's Edge, monitoring every sensor array and weapon system with the precision that had made his people the galaxy's most feared military force. He could feel the confidence of his crew, the anticipation of another easy victory, the satisfaction of serving a cause they believed was righteous. Communications. Open a channel to the primitive vessels approaching from their lunar installations, he commanded, his voice causing harmonic resonances throughout the ship's metal hull. Let us extend the traditional offer of peaceful surrender before we demonstrate the futility of resistance. The main view screen activated, showing a small human vessel that barely qualified as a spacecraft by galactic standards. It was constructed from simple metal alloys, powered by chemical rockets that left visible exhaust trails, and armed with what appeared to be crude projectile weapons. The entire ship looked like something his people might have built during their pre-technological period, thousands of years ago. But when the communication channel opened and the human commander appeared on screen, Fleet Commander Velthak felt something he had not experienced in centuries of military service. The primitive creature looking back at him showed no fear, no awe at the sight of the massive alien fleet, and certainly no indication that surrender was being considered. Instead, the human's eyes held something that looked almost like anticipation. The human spoke in a calm, measured voice that seemed completely at odds with the desperate situation his species faced. Unknown vessels, you have entered Earth's sovereign space without authorization. Identify yourselves and state your intentions, or withdraw immediately. Velthak felt his metallic features reshape into an expression of amazement. This primitive creature was actually giving orders to the combined might of galactic civilization. It was so absurd that several of his bridge officers made the harmonic sounds that indicated amusement among their species. "I am Fleet Commander Velthok of the Galactic Sovereignty Council," he replied, allowing his voice to carry the full authority of someone who represented 847 advanced civilizations. "Your species has been selected for integration into our galactic community. Surrender immediately, and you will be granted the privilege of serving the greater good." The human's expression did not change. If anything, the creature seemed to grow more confident as the conversation continued. "I am Admiral Sarah Chun of the United Earth Defense Command. Counteroffer. Turn your ships around and leave our system immediately, or discover why humanity has survived every extinction event this universe has thrown at us for the past 4 billion years. Fleet Commander Velthok stared at the primitive being on his screen, trying to process what he had just heard. This creature, representing a species that had barely learned to leave its own planet, was threatening the most powerful military force in galactic history. It was beyond absurd. It was almost insulting. And yet, something about the human's absolute confidence made him hesitate for just a moment before giving the order to begin the attack. That hesitation would prove to be the most costly mistake of his very long military career. When prey becomes predator, the humans strike back. Admiral Sarah Chun sat in the command chair of the UED Scifiant, watching the alien armada spread across. Her tactical displays like a metallic plague. 500 ships, each one larger and more advanced than anything humanity had supposedly ever built. She could feel the weight of her species' survival pressing down on her shoulders, but her expression remained calm and confident. After all, she had been preparing for this moment her entire life. Around her, the bridge crew of the Defiant worked with the focused intensity that came from knowing that failure meant the extinction of their species. These were not the desperate, last defenders of a doomed world, but highly trained professionals who had spent decades preparing for exactly this scenario. Every one of them knew their role in the plan that would either save humanity or die trying. "Status report," Chun commanded, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had earned respect through competence rather than rank alone. "All stealth. Networks are active and operational," reported Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb from the sensor station. "Lunar installations are charged and ready. Mars colonies confirm weapon systems are online. Asteroid belt fortifications report all systems green." Chun nodded approvingly. The aliens saw a small flotilla of primitive ships facing impossible odds, but they were looking at only the smallest visible portion of humanity's true defensive capability. For 30 years, ever since the first alien probe had been detected, entering their solar system, humanity had been preparing for this day while carefully maintaining the illusion of primitive helplessness. Asterisk, asterisk. The alien fleet commander's transmission crackled across all frequencies, his voice carrying the arrogant confidence of someone accustomed to easy victories over helpless primitives. "Admiral Chun, you command vessels powered by chemical propulsion. I command 500 warships equipped with weapons that could sterilize your entire planet. Do you seriously believe you can threaten us?" Chun smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "Fleet Commander Velthok, you have made 3 critical errors in your assessment of human capabilities. First, you assumed that what you can see represents the full extent of our military strength. Second, you assumed that our apparent technological limitations reflect our actual capabilities. Third, and most importantly, you assumed that we would be intimidated by superior numbers and advanced technology." The Defiant moved closer to the alien formation, and Chun could see the massive warships adjusting their positions to track her. Small vessel. Each alien ship was a masterpiece of advanced engineering, equipped with weapons and defenses that surpassed human technology by centuries. Under normal circumstances, any one of them could have conquered Earth single-handedly. But These were not normal circumstances, and humanity had long ago learned that winning wars required more than superior technology. "Let me educate you about human nature," Sean continued, her voice carrying the deadly calm that marked her species' most dangerous predators. "We are the species that survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, and supervolcanic eruptions. We are the species that turned wolves into dogs, made fire our servant, and split the atom just to see what would happen. Most importantly, we are the species that has never, not once in our entire evolutionary history, backed down from a fight just because the odds were against us." Before Velthak could respond, Sean gave the signal that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The first surprise came from the asteroid belt, where what the aliens had dismissed as primitive mining operations suddenly revealed their true nature. Hundreds of rocky masses that had been hollowed out and equipped with engines became mobile weapons platforms, accelerating toward the alien fleet at velocities that should have been impossible for chemical propulsion. But these were not chemical rockets. They were mass drivers disguised as mining equipment, capable of accelerating multi-billion-ton asteroids to significant fractions of light speed. The second surprise came from Mars, where the surface installations that had appeared to be struggling agricultural colonies erupted in coordinated launches. Thousands of objects rose from the red planet's surface, too small and numerous to be traditional spacecraft. The alien sensors registered them as some kind of automated probe or drone, until the swarms began demonstrating collective intelligence that exceeded anything in the Council's databases. Each drone was no larger than a human fist, but they moved in coordinated groups of millions, their artificial intelligence systems allowing them to adapt and evolve their tactics in real time. The aliens had faced automated weapons before, but nothing that could think and learn as fast as biological intelligence while coordinating across such vast numbers. The third surprise came from Earth's moon, where sections of the surface that had appeared to be natural craters suddenly opened like blooming flowers. Railguns the size of skyscrapers emerged from hidden installations, their electromagnetic coils charging with enough power to accelerate projectiles across interplanetary distances in mere seconds. These were not the primitive kinetic weapons the aliens expected, but mass accelerators that used principles of physics the Council thought they had exclusive access to. But the greatest surprise was yet to come. Fleet Commander Velthak watched in growing disbelief as his sensors registered energy signatures that defied everything he knew about human technology. The primitive ships that should have been helpless against his advanced weapons were generating force fields that looked suspiciously similar to Council deflector technology. Their engines were producing thrust patterns that suggested some form of controlled dimensional manipulation. Most disturbing of all, their weapons were charging with power levels that exceeded what their apparent technology should have been capable of producing. "Science officer, analyze those energy readings," he commanded, his voice carrying the first hints of uncertainty he had felt in centuries of military service. "Sir, the human vessels appear to be equipped with technology that closely resembles our own dimensional phase systems and plasma generation matrices. However, the power efficiency is significantly higher than our current specifications. According to our physics models, such improvements should be impossible without computational resources equivalent to an entire planetary civilization." Velthak felt something cold and metallic settle in what passed for his stomach. How could they have developed such technology? "Our intelligence reports indicated they had barely achieved orbital flight." "Sir," the science officer replied, his voice filled with scientific disbelief, "preliminary analysis suggests they did not develop it. They appear to have reverse-engineered our technology from captured scout probes and then improved it beyond our current capabilities. The modifications seem to be based on mathematical principles we have not yet discovered." The battle that followed shattered every assumption the Galactic Sovereignty Council had about primitive species and technological warfare. Admiral Chun's seemingly helpless flotilla revealed capabilities that defied everything Velthak's people knew about combat in space. Human ships phased through dimensions the Council thought they had exclusive access to, appearing behind alien formations before devastating them with weapons that seemed to ignore advanced shielding entirely. The asteroid weapons platform struck with kinetic force that turned Council dreadnoughts into expanding clouds of metallic vapor. The drone swarms from Mars flowed around alien defenses like living rivers of destruction, finding weak points in ship designs that their creators had never imagined could be exploited. The lunar railguns fired projectiles that arrived almost instantaneously across millions of miles, punching through supposedly impenetrable armor as if it were tissue paper. Most disturbing of all was the way human technology seemed to adapt and improve during the engagement itself. Weapons that failed to penetrate alien shields in the first exchange somehow became more effective with each subsequent shot. Human ships that took damage from Council weapons appeared to analyze the attacks in real time and become immune to identical strikes in the future. They are not just fighting us, Velthak realized with growing horror as he watched another of his capital ships disappear in a flash of directed energy. They are studying us. Every weapon we fire, every tactic we employ, they are learning from it and developing countermeasures faster than we can adapt our strategies. Admiral Chun's voice echoed across all frequencies as the human fleet pressed their devastating attack. Fleet Commander Velthak, you came here expecting to conquer a primitive species. Instead, you have encountered the most dangerous predator this galaxy has ever produced. We are humanity, and we do not simply survive threats to our existence. We study them, we understand them, and then we turn them into advantages. As space around Earth had become a graveyard of alien technology, Council ships that had conquered dozens of worlds found themselves outmaneuvered, outgunned, and outhought by enemies they had dismissed as helpless primitives. The survivors of Velthak's once mighty fleet found themselves fleeing toward the edge of the system, pursued by human vessels that seemed to grow more dangerous with every passing moment. But the humans were not content with simply repelling the invasion. As the alien survivors limped toward the outer system, preparing to retreat into hyperspace, they discovered that escape was not going to be as simple as they had hoped. Human ships equipped with what could only be Council-level dimensional anchor. Technology began materializing around them, cutting off their retreat routes and forcing them into defensive positions that grew more desperate by the hour, deep beneath the Colorado Rockies, in a facility that had never appeared on any official government documentation. Dr. Amanda Foster watched the battle through displays that showed the full extent of humanity's prepared defenses. Around her, teams of scientists and engineers worked with equipment that represented 30 years of reverse-engineered alien technology, improved and refined by human innovation until it exceeded the capabilities of its original creators. Analysis. Team, what is our capture rate on alien technology? She asked, coordinating salvage operations across multiple star systems simultaneously. Excellent, Dr. Foster. Recovery teams have secured intact examples of their hyperspace drives, plasma weaponry, and dimensional shielding systems. Engineering estimates we can begin mass production of improved versions within 72 hours. Foster nodded with satisfaction as she watched human recovery vessels swarming over disabled alien ships, their crews working with the efficiency that came from years of practice. Every piece of Council technology was being cataloged, analyzed, and improved by teams of scientists who had spent decades preparing for exactly this opportunity. The aliens had come to conquer Earth, but instead they had provided humanity with everything needed to become a galactic power. It was, she reflected, a perfect example of the principle that had allowed her species to dominate every ecosystem on their home planet. When faced with a superior predator, humans did not simply fight or flee. They studied, adapted, and eventually became the superior predator themselves. Supreme Arbiter Zethkar received the reports from Earth's solar system with a kind of shocked disbelief that his crystalline species had not experienced in millennia of existence. The fleet that was supposed to conquer a primitive world in a matter of hours had been not just defeated, but completely annihilated by technologies that should not have existed. Worse still, the humans had not stopped with simply defending their home system. Long-range sensors were detecting human ships throughout Council space, moving with faster-than-light capabilities that exceeded anything in their databases. These vessels were broadcasting a message that chilled the hearts of every civilized species in the galaxy. Admiral Chan's face appeared on communication screens throughout Council territory, her expression carrying the same deadly confidence that had marked her species' most successful predators throughout their evolutionary history. Attention, Galactic Sovereignty Council. You voted to invade our home and subjugate our people. You sent your fleets to conquer what you believed was a helpless species. You have made a grave error. The transmission continued as human ships appeared in star systems that had not seen warfare in centuries. We are humanity, and we do not forgive threats to our children. We do not forget species that seek to enslave us. And we do not show mercy to civilizations that believe might makes right. You wanted to integrate Earth into your galactic community. Congratulations. You are about to discover what happens when humanity decides to integrate the galaxy into our community instead. The age of easy conquest was over. The Galactic Sovereignty Council had awakened something that would reshape the balance of power across known space, and their carefully ordered civilization would never be the same again. They had wanted to conquer the humans, but instead they had created the most dangerous enemy the galaxy had ever seen, and the humans were just getting started. Asterisk,